Welcome back. In part three of this narrated slides for week 6, we're going to talk about the metrics we use to measure environmental progress. So the first thing we want to do is to address this question about why do we need to measure things. There's an age-old adage that says if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. This is stated by a variety of people, from Lord Kelvin to Peter Drucker to Edward Deming. But at the same time, some of those people, including Edward Deming, said, the most important things cannot be measured. That is, just because we can measure it doesn't mean it's the right thing to improve. And this is one of the crucial questions we're going to have, and we're going to address in week 7 is, how do we know that we're measuring the right stuff? So the way we're going to do that is look at indexes, and just to review, we have this information pyramid. We start with basic data and statistics, we create counts, and then we create these indicators from those accounts. And the accounts are where we sort the data into different useful bins, but the indicators are attempting to convey a message about the state of the system. And those messages that they're supposed to convey are about what's happening to the system. Is it changing in one way or the other? And also, we look at those indicators, sort of 3 types of indicators. One might say the state of the environment. Another type might be for sustainability, what's the long haul. Another might be for just performance, how well it's operating at that one time. Well, there's quite a list of environmental indexes that are being used, and in this recent paper by de Kerk, Van de Kerk and Manuel, they listed quite a few of these, and there's the Sustainable Society Index, Human Development Index, Environmental Sustainability Index. You can read this list, but we're going to look at 2 in particular. We're going to look at this Genuine Progress Indicator, which is sort of a follow-on from the ICEW, an attempt to make a green GDP. And we already saw the ecological footprint, and we're going to see the Happy Planet Index. So there's an exercise in the assignments about the Genuine Progress Indicator, and there's a nice video about the Happy Planet Index that helps explain why this index is essentially an efficiency measure of life satisfaction, of life expectancy compared to sort of the human footprint. So just for now, let me just talk about the Genuine Progress Indicator. And this is very important to understand, because the Genuine Progress Indicator is a measure of an economic, environmental, and social progress. I'll show you some of the accounts in just a second. But if we compare the Genuine Progress Indicator, which is this blue line, to the GDP per capita, which is this green line, we see that the GDP is continuing to go up. So if we relied on GDP as our message about what's happening with the anything but the economy, we'd be misled. Whereas really, the GDP over the decades the GPI, the Genuine Progress Indicator, from 1960 to 2000, really was flat. We had increased economic activity, but we really weren't improving the other aspects of our environmental and social lives. So here's an example why that is. The Genuine Progress Indicator measures both the good and the bad aspects, and it puts them into accounts that are either good or bad. So for example, measures personal consumption, like the GDP, and that's a good thing, but it measures economic inequality as a bad thing, and it puts the Gini index that tells the differential between the highest and the lowest paid in your society, and counts that against genuine progress. Similarly, water pollution, it's a bad thing, whereas the cleanup of water pollution events, such as the oil spill from the Exxon Valdez in Alaska, actually contributed to the GDP. So water pollution and the cleanup, you don't end up any better off after you clean it up than you did when you started. So that can't really be an improvement. And then another aspect, among many is that it counts volunteer work as a good thing, where people are out volunteering, improving the community, whereas the GDP would say that that uncompensated employment doesn't really contribute to the economy. Well, it may not contribute to the financial economy, but it can definitely contribute to the economic, social, and environmental well-being. Here's a list of what's in the Genuine Progress Indicator. Again, you want an indicator to be clear and concise and have so that the signal is clear. And let's just look at a couple of these. Under personal consumption, here's the explanation. Goods and services, those are key drivers. That's good. Personal consumption is good. But income inequality, there's a lot of evidence that that's bad for society to have extreme income inequality. So with each of these indicators for economics, environmental, and social, it puts them into accounts that are either bad for progress or good for progress. Now we're going to go back, and you're going to have an assignment that looks at this. In the assignments, you look at the Genuine Progress Indicator, and one of the things you're going to want to do is look at this Genuine Progress Indicator as it's used by Maryland. When you go to that site, you want to work yourself through the tabs that explain what the GPI is and how it relates to GDP, how it relates to Maryland's particular economy, and then at the end there's a simulation of the GDP compared to the GPI based on different investments in green infrastructure, education, a few things like that. And you can see how this, if the state of Maryland was to make investments in any one of these areas, how it would play out. Some might be fairly neutral. It wouldn't really matter if you're measuring GDP or GPI. Others might make a big difference. For example, renewable energy makes a big difference if it comes in and has these other environmental benefits that may not be measured under the GDP. So the idea there is to look at these different indicators, like we saw in the table above, and those are listed in the assignment, and then on this Genuine Progress Indicator, drill down. And another thing that's in the assignment is a video about the Happy Planet Index, and that's very illuminating because, again, it's a very simple measure. It's intuitive. You can explain it to people pretty quickly. How you actually measure it might be a little bit more complicated, and it really puts life satisfaction and health really at the top of the list. All right, good luck.